On the 31st of October 2021, a quiet night in Salisbury, Wiltshire, was soon disrupted when two passenger trains collided just outside of Fisherton Tunnel. In today's video, we will explain why this happened and the steps taken afterwards to try and prevent another incident of this nature. At 08:44 on the 31st of October 2021, a train, head-coded as 1 Lima 13, struck a tree that had fallen onto the down main line just outside of Salisbury Station. The service comes to a stop close to the AWS magnet for signal Sierra Yankee 29, which will be an important signal later on in the video. The guard of this service cut back the tree and the line was reopened at 10:44 and services returned to normal. 14 minutes earlier, at 10:30 in the morning, a driver employed by South Western Railway signed on for duty at Salisbury Depot. He was scheduled to travel to Honiton to begin the first service shift, but some short notice cancellations owing to severe weather meant that he stayed in Salisbury Depot's mess room until around 14:50, when he was requested to operate his first service of the day, 1 Lima 52, running the service from Salisbury to London Waterloo. The driver was informed by a colleague of a fallen tree earlier that day, and, as the driver left Salisbury, noticed the remains of the tree to the side of the down main line. Once the driver arrived into London Waterloo, he left train 1 Lima 52 and got ready to take his new train 1 Lima 53 back to Salisbury and beyond. 1 Lima 53, one of the two main services involved in the incident, was a South Western Railway service comprising of a single Class 159, 102, which was a 3-car diesel multiple unit which had been converted from a Class 158 in 2006. 1 Lima 53 departed London Waterloo at 17:21, 1 minute late, and the train was due for a normal journey. Shortly after departing Waterloo, the driver conducted a running brake test to ensure that the brakes of 159-102 were functioning correctly, and the driver found no issue with the train's braking capability. After being held at a red signal at Woking, the train was now running 6 minutes late. From 18:35 to 18:40, a small spell of rain showered the Middle Wallop area near Salisbury, making the already contaminated railhead even worse. And as 1 Lima 53 rocketed towards Salisbury on the down main line just 5 minutes later, the double yellow aspect marks the point of which this journey takes a turn for the worse. The double yellow signal, Sierra Yankee 29 Romeo, is a distant signal that can display a yellow, double yellow, or green aspect in relation to the stop signal, Sierra Yankee 29, which was ahead of it. Sierra Yankee 29 itself is a signal that is situated on the down main line and protects Laverstock North Junction. It is a 3-aspect signal with a junction indicator which illuminates if the train is being routed onto the single track curve that puts it onto the up Dean line towards Southampton. If not, the train continues on the down main line towards Salisbury, of which the next signal is then Sierra Yankee 31, a 3-aspect signal which protects movements from the up and down Dean lines where the main and Dean lines meet at Salisbury Tunnel Junction. This signal will be playing a vital part in the upcoming incident. At the same time, train 1 Foxtrot 30, a Great Western Railway service to Bristol Temple Meads, was approaching Salisbury on the down Dean line. The service was running approximately 20 minutes late. 1 Foxtrot 30 consisted of 2 Class 158s coupled together. Signal Sierra Yankee 31 was set to danger to protect the movement of 1 Foxtrot 30 into Salisbury, across Salisbury Tunnel Junction, alongside 1 Foxtrot 27, a service not directly involved in the incident, running 4 minutes late behind schedule, which ran across the junction onto the Updean line before the incident occurred. The signaller believed that 1 Foxtrot 30 would navigate Salisbury Tunnel Junction before 1 Lima 53, therefore it was cleared through, and 1 Lima 53 was to be held at Sierra Yankee 31. The driver of 1 Foxtrot 30 wouldn't know anything was wrong until the point of the collision. As the driver of 1 Lima 53 passes Sierra Yankee 29 Romeo to 86 miles per hour, the driver decides to use the fallen tree beyond Broken Cross Bridge as the point to initiate braking. However, the driver doesn't spot the tree and passes by without the brakes applied. Moments later, the driver passes by the 50 miles per hour speed warning board, advising of the upcoming line speed decrease, still travelling around 86 miles per hour. 13 seconds later, at 18:42 and 2 seconds, the driver makes a step 1 brake application before immediately moving into step 2. The wheel axles immediately begin to slide and the wheel slip protection system begins trying to overcome the poor rail adhesion. The driver notices this and, 5 seconds later, places the brake controller into full service, but notices the speed was not decreasing at the rate it should. And then, 6 seconds later, the driver places the controller into emergency. This is the position the brake handle remains in for the rest of the incident. As 1 Lima 53 rocketed towards the Salisbury area, and with the brakes in emergency, there was nothing else the driver could do but sit and hope his train would come to a stand before passing Sierra Yankee 31. But as the shining yellow aspect of Sierra Yankee 29 quickly approached, and with the train speed still at 77 miles per hour, what was about to happen would now be inevitable. At 18:42 and 57 seconds, train 1 Lima 53 collided with the side of 1 Foxtrot 30 while still travelling at around 52 miles per hour. The rear unit on 1 Foxtrot 30 had its coupling broken by the impact and was separated from the front unit, which carried on for a short moment, sustaining relatively no damage. The front carriage of 1 Lima 53 and the third carriage of 1 Foxtrot 30 came to a stop right into the Fisherton Tunnel portal. The driving cab of 1 Lima 53 sustained substantial damage, and the driver was rushed to hospital with severe injuries. 13 passengers were taken to hospital as a result of the incident. There were 197 passengers and 5 staff members involved in the incident. The RAIB arrived on site around 2 hours later and immediately began the investigation. The immediate cause of the accident found by the RAIB was that train 1 Lima 53 passed signal Sierra Yankee 31 at danger and could not stop before colliding with train 1 Foxtrot 30, owing to a number of different factors which prevented the train from coming to a stop before passing the signal at danger. The RAIB found 3 causal factors to the incident. Firstly, the wheel track adhesion was very low in the area where the driver first applied the brakes on 1 Lima 53. The poor adhesion was due to heavy leaf fall in the area, followed by a small batch of rain around 10 minutes before the accident. On the night of the accident, The RAIB found that level 2 and level 3 contamination levels were on the track leading up to the collision. As part of Network Rail's autumn mitigation measures and its railhead treatment programme, track treatment trains, ran by multi-purpose vehicles or MPVs, were utilised in the Wessex area to help mitigate the impacts of leaf fall and track contamination. On the 30th of October at 11:06, an MPV travelled across the Down Main. However, an MPV was also scheduled to pass by at 17:03 on the 31st of October, 1 hour and 40 minutes before the accident, but was postponed to 2300 due to planned engineering which would block the MPV's exit from the depot. As this was planned in advance, Network Rail did not consider the Down Main line to be a missed site. This meant that, even though Network Rail's Wessex control staff were aware of the predicted poor weather and leaf fall, no additional mitigations or control measures were considered or adopted. By the time of the accident during the evening of the 31st of October, it was likely that any mitigations as a result of the treatment on the morning of the 30th of October was no longer effective. The high leaf fall, due to the trees still having 65 to 70% of their leaves according to Met Decks provided by Met Office, mixed with small drizzle of rain before the accident, meant that the railhead was quite contaminated during the incident. The RAIB identified a casual factor that Network Rail's Wessex route had not effectively mitigated the railhead contamination. Secondly, it was found the driver did not apply train 1 Lima 53's brakes sufficiently enough on approach to Sierra Yankee 31 to avoid running onto the junction, given the prevailing levels of rail adhesion. As the driver observed Sierra Yankee 29 displaying a double yellow aspect, he decided not to start braking at Broken Cross Bridge, his usual braking point, which is around 560 metres beyond the distance signal, and instead decided to start braking at the point of the fallen tree, which was 250 metres beyond Broken Cross Bridge. The driver stated that this was because he believed leaves and debris from the fallen tree would be more likely to cause low adhesion conditions and wheel sliding. The driver acknowledged the fact that 1 Lima 53 was only 3 carriages long, shorter than normal, and therefore the braking capabilities would be affected, but believed he would be able to bring the train to a stop before reaching Sierra Yankee 31. It was clear that the driver did not realise the extent of the poor rail adhesion in the area, and therefore did not drive defensively. While there were weather reports, including for poor rail adhesion, which were posted in Salisbury Depot, where the driver booked on, the RAIB were told by both the driver of 1 Lima 53 and other drivers that they did not regularly look at these forecasts due to lack of time and claims that it was too difficult to understand. They therefore relied on their own experience and visual observations when driving to understand the prevailing adhesion conditions. This was the case of the driver of 1 Lima 53 on the day of the accident, and this was his normal approach. Finally, it was found that the braking systems of 1 Lima 53 were unable to mitigate the effects of the prevailing rail adhesion. It was found that maintenance records for 159102, the unit running 1 Lima 53, were completely up to date and no defects were prominent. And, in fact, the brakes and sanding systems were tested just 5 days before the incident, in which a sand discharge test was conducted, which was successful. The sandboxes were also topped up 2 days before the accident. While the damage sustained to 159102 during the incident from the collision and rescue efforts meant that it was impossible to be sure that the sanding system was functioning, OTDR data of WSP activity, signs of sediment on the track, unblocked sand discharge nozzles, and the fact that the sanding system electronics were fully operational all signed to the idea that the sanding system was fully functional leading up to the accident. Records from the on-train data recorder indicate that from 2 seconds after the driver initiated braking, the wheel slip protection system was active on all 3 carriages up until the point of the collision. 159102 was fitted with a fixed-rate sanding system. The RAIB made the observation that a more advanced system, such as a variable-rate sander, might have reduced the collision speed or prevented it altogether. Therefore, while the wheel slip protection system and sanding systems were most definitely functional, it ultimately was unable to prevent the collision. Overall, the RAIB made 10 recommendations to attempt to prevent an incident of this nature taking place again. In summary, these recommended that Network Rail improve their autumn leaf fall plan and provide appropriate training and briefing alongside improving competence and understanding of rail adhesion and management and their effectiveness. They were also encouraged to consider the risk of signal overruns, especially in areas of prominent low rail adhesion. It was recommended to South Western Railway that they should evaluate its processes for monitoring and reviewing the reporting of low rail adhesion by drivers to ensure that these arrangements remain effective. Train leasing companies such as Porterbrook, Angel Trains and Eversholt Rail were recommended to assess the risk of jammed sliding doors in the event of an accident. Finally, the RVIB placed a recommendation for the industry as a whole to realise the benefit and potential of future technologies to improve tackling poor rail adhesion and braking. Following the accident, it is thought that everybody involved made a full recovery. The train running 1 Lima 53 and the rear Class 158 on 1 Foxtrot 30 were written off due to the immense damage both units sustained. In conclusion, the Salisbury collision is a harsh reminder of the risks associated with both unexpected low rail adhesion and how ineffective management or consideration can lead to an incident such as this one. Thank you for watching.